Welcome back to the Thomson Broadcast GatesAir booth at NAB in Las Vegas. What a thrill to once again welcome Madeleine Noland, president of ATSC, here into the Thomson Broadcast studio. Thanks so much for joining us.
Pleasure.
Give us an update. We're seeing and hearing and feeling so much buzz at the conference about ATSC 3. Let's talk specifically about here in the U.S. expansion, growth, adoption. How's it going?
Well, it's going extremely well. I'd like to start with an anecdote, though, because ATSC 3.0 came on the air in my hometown of Boston, Massachusetts, this year, before the Super Bowl. So I got to watch the Super Bowl and some Celtics basketball and other content in ATSC 3.0. So is it that good? What does it look like? And my firsthand experience, first thing you notice, the video is so much better. You cannot miss it. It is noticeably better. We didn't even get to 4K yet. We're doing this with 1080p, so it's really, really good. The other thing is that the voice boost, the idea that you can turn the dialogue up relative to the music and effects, works beautifully. I have both the television set and a set-top box, and they both work great. The other thing that I noticed right away is that the reception is even stronger than 1.0, which is amazing because the 3.0 tower is more than twice as far away from my house as the 1.0 towers, and it's also in a slightly different direction, and my antenna is optimized for 1.0, but 3.0 is still coming in stronger, more stable, just beautiful. And then the other piece that was interesting, and maybe we'll talk about this a little bit more, is that one of the stations has interactivity on it. So that's very exciting. But I think the next most exciting thing that I wanted to talk about, because that's just in my little world, the United States writ large, about 60% of households are able to receive 3.0 services. There's coverage. And I know the broadcasters are having a lot of, the hard markets are next. I heard some really good news about some larger markets coming online very soon. We already got Boston, San Francisco, and Miami this year. Very exciting, along with Des Moines and others. And the other thing that's very exciting to me is that I think that the broadcasters have made a lot of strong impressions on the FCC in order to have the FCC help us finish this transition. And Chairwoman Rosenworcel this morning announced the formation of a team, public-private partnership, dedicated to getting this transition done as smoothly and quickly as possible. And that was a big announcement.
I'm sure that was exciting for you to hear.
Very exciting. There was applause in the room when we heard about it. So yes, that's a big deal.
Because it really is all about the partnerships, right? To make this transition as smooth as possible, as successful as possible.
Exactly. And some of the partnerships are difficult not because of their, competitive nature. They're difficult because spectrum is so tight. But we're very excited about this, and we think that some new ideas can come forth. And I know that one of the sort of work projects in Rosenworcel's new team is going to be, how do we finish the transition? And by that, I understand to mean, how do we get to the point that we can turn off ATSC 1.0 eventually when all the consumers are all taken care of and ready to go? And that's going to be a major milestone.
For sure. And with 3.0, the new frontier, really, the possibilities, we may not even comprehend all the possibilities yet.
That's right. Absolutely. The people are talking about new use cases going into automotive, the Internet of Things, ways to do data delivery as a service. So it's tremendous what's happening, and a lot of it is here on display at the NAB show, which is why it's so much fun to be here with all this energy and all this innovation. One of the very cool things that's going on as innovation in the ATSC booth is one of ATSC's sort of cutting-edge teams, and it's called the Tower Network Team. And the idea is you need to get data to the tower in order to transmit it. So you might send that data via fiber or by microwave or something. This idea is, why don't we use the towers themselves to send the data among the towers? So we're going to go tower to tower with data over broadcast. Why not?
Wow. I had never thought about it. You might see I was like, I had a little light bulb because I hadn't thought about that.
The Intertower Communication Network. So that's on display at the ATSC booth, which we're very excited about. It's a work in progress, but we have a lot of smart people working on it.
Very cool.
Yeah, I'm very excited about that.
We've been talking about the U.S. in particular. Earlier today, I talked with some folks from Jamaica, particularly over television Jamaica, and the adoption in countries like that. We're seeing tremendous growth in the Caribbean, in Jamaica, and Jamaica is moving from analog all the way to ATSC 3.0, which is a tremendous jump. And you're seeing, I believe, a lot of adoption in other countries as well.
Yeah, well, certainly South Korea paved the way for everybody, and they got on the air in 2017, so they beat us all to the punch. The U.S. was second, and Jamaica is the third one. Jamaica is the first country to go from analog to 3.0, so that's a world first, and I wouldn't be surprised if Jamaica is the first one to finish the transition completely. Although South Korea is going to be right on their heels, I think. South Korea might get there first. But I'm very excited about that. Trinidad and Tobago, as you mentioned, just also announced that they will adopt ATSC 3.0, and they're planning to start now. And we also know that Brazil is working on defining their next generation system. They're actually choosing different pieces from different standards in order to build a system. And they haven't finished making all of their decisions, but they've made all but one. And for all the decisions they've made, pick the video from here, the audio from here, interactive and transport, etc. It's all been ATSC 3.0 down the line, except for the video, which is the newest codec, which we're adding anyway, and the interactive system because they wanted to keep their own. Everything else has been ATSC 3.0, and they will finish their testing and make a decision about the last piece, which is the physical layer, later this year or about this time next year, around. So we're excited by that. So we know that some of ATSC technologies will be in the system, and we're hopeful that even the physical layer will be there as well, but they're doing their testing. It's what we call in the standards world a good old-fashioned bake-off. Yeah.
Particularly in developing countries, we're not just talking about improved video quality. We're talking about a transformative experience for many people.
I think so. We're thinking about how you use ATSC 3.0 to close the digital divide. And you think about Jamaica, for example. When you're on an analog system, you can only put one service in a channel apart. And you know, here in the United States, we have the .1, .2, .3 channels and all of these things, so you can put multiple services. And in Jamaica, when the pandemic hit, that was a big problem because they're trying to send the distance education learning materials over the air, and you have a household with a third grader and a fifth grader and an eighth grader, but you can only send one content piece. And when they move to 3.0, suddenly they're going to be able to do these multicasts that we have here in the United States, and they'll be able to send content for a variety of grade levels at different times of day. So we really think that ATSC 3.0 is going to serve that country well, and we hope others also.
And that's really, I love that example because it really is a tangible representation of how technology can be an equalizer.
Exactly. And I think that the emergency messaging, the advanced emergency messaging is also very, very important, especially with the way things are in the Caribbean. They do have their share of weather emergencies, and they know they need to be able to get that information out to all the people quickly and easily and reliably. And a broadcast system is really the thing, with the way to do it.
And it can save lives.
It can save lives. It can save property. I'm also pleased that Brazil has taken the ATSC 3.0 advanced emergency messaging system as well. So it's a very powerful system.
What do you anticipate is next for ATSC standards?
Well, we're excited about this tower network, which I mentioned. Once they're finished sort of putting pieces together, and I mean, they're having so much fun. It's like a kid with Tinker Toys, right? You're building this thing. And once they get far enough along in that kind of study, they're going to standardize that. But the other thing that I think is one of the most important pieces is what I call core network. And core network means that we talk about data casting as a service. Okay, so we're going to go to an enterprise customer. Let's say that it's a freight operator. And we're going to allow you to send data to your trucks, no matter where they are in the country. So it's an IP data delivery system that's covering the country, and we can just send data to all these first. No problem. But the problem with broadcasting here in the U.S. is that each broadcaster is its own talent. And if you have a trucking company, they're not going to call up even 7 station ownership groups, let alone 1,000 television stations, in order to broker this deal and figure it out.
Right.
You need this one platform where this enterprise customer can come in and say, I've got this much data. It's going to go to these regions. I want it on the air these times. And here's my order. And then you have this core network that says, okay, I'm going to orchestrate this. I'm going to make sure all the towers have the data. I'm going to make sure that the data delivery inventory of the spectrum is available. I'm going to make sure that the broadcasters are working together, either manually or automatically, depending on how they want to do it. And basically, carve out the inventory on the spectrum, get the data down, and have an as-run log, in other words, to tell the freight company it worked and like that. But without that orchestration layer, you cannot do this kind of business. So ATSC is standardizing the core network, which is going to allow these kinds of regional and national business cases to take place. All right, very exciting.
My face should be one that brain exploding emoji.
Whoa! They can add that afterwards. Right, you're right.
Mind blown. So what should broadcasters expect now from particularly with applications and interactivity when it comes to ATSC?
Yeah, the interactivity is a really interesting piece as people get more and more used to leaning forward. You can have interactivity that's available that the customer sees and interacts with. Some of the ideas that are out there have to do with getting certain player statistics on the screen as you're watching a sporting event. But you don't want the Yankees, you want the Red Sox, right? And so being able to express that and get that kind of information. And right now, I think broadcasters are toeing in the water. They're experimenting. What works? What doesn't? Can we get the whole back end to work? But what's really interesting is in Boston, I do get interactivity on the public television station that's doing 3.0. So GBH has interactivity on the air. I'm watching the station, a little bug comes up, it says, you want to do more? And you go, yep. And then you get a list of things that you can do. You can look at the program guide. You can go to another channel, click to donate. It is GBH, right? So there's a lot of really neat things you can do with the interactive system. The other thing that I think is important about it is that it plays an integral role in the emergency messaging system, because it's the application layer that can present the messaging to the viewer in a way that the broadcaster is creating. So it's a super important system. Very excited about it. We're excited about what we're learning from our European comrades. The Europeans have had successful interactivity for some years. They know what works. What's the killer app? They already have these things in mind. So we're working very closely to learn from our European counterparts about what works and what doesn't. But we're excited about it.
That is exciting. And live programming, particularly sporting events, because a lot of people don't record and watch later, but they're watching live. Is that a big target?
That's a big target, yes. And one of the use cases that a lot of broadcasters are thinking about is sports betting. So you're watching the live content, and it's important that it's a broadcast experience, because if you're thinking about micro betting, not who's going to win the game, but is he going to make the field goal?
Right.
Are they going to, is he going to get a strikeout? And so the transactions are happening very quickly. Latency, or lack thereof, is super important. And also the fact that everybody gets the same information at the same time is super important, because you can't know what's going to happen and then be able to place a bet in a different platform, right?
Right.
So it's got to be very well timed, and broadcast is extremely well suited for that. So a lot of people think that there's a real potential market there, and the consumers will enjoy. And of course, it's a business.
Yeah. Well, we're here in Las Vegas, right? I'm sure this is a city that will be watching those developments.
Yeah, close. I think you're right about that. Yeah, good point.
Thank you so much for joining us. I love your insight.
Thank you very much. It's a pleasure to be here, and have a great show.